Hello and welcome to the video lecture on correlated subqueries. So this is really the pinnacle, right? If you get this, if you understand this, you're pretty much ready to sit down and get paid to write SQL, because this is about as complicated as it gets. So first of all, sit back, relax, clear your mind, and let's work our way through this. So, first of all, we've already done non-correlated subqueries. They don't depend on data from the outer query and they execute once. Correlated subqueries, or depending on how you pronounce it, correlated subqueries, make use of data from the outer query and execute once for each row of the outer query. So again, we're talking about the subquery. So the subquery in this example, or in this type of query, is going to reach out to the outer query and grab data. So, in the process of doing that, for all intents and purposes, the outer query gathers its data first, and then it passes information to the subquery, which executes once for each row. It can use the exists operator, and in all of our examples, it will. So looking at a correlated subquery example, we want to show all of the orders that include furniture finished in natural ash. So certainly we could do a direct join, right? We could join the orders table with the order. We could join the orders table to the order line table to the product table. Or in this case, we could just go from the order line right to the order table, right to the product table, depending on how much information we want. In this case, all we want to see is the order ID. We want the order ID from order line associated with products where the finish is natural ash. So the exists will return true if the value of the subquery results is not an empty set. Okay, in other words, if something gets returned, one record with anything in it, it's going to evaluate to true. All right. So the subquery tests for a value that comes from the outer query. So if you look at this inner query is select star from product T, where product ID equals order line T dot product ID, and the product finish equals natural ash. Up until now, what you were able to do is with this subquery, the subquery would operate on its own, and you could run it on its own and see the result set that would come back. In this case, if you tried to run this inner query by itself, you would get prompted for a value for the order line T.product ID, because the only thing in the inner query is the product T table. So, in this case, the SQL standard says, oh, all right, well, if I can't find it in the inner query and I realize I am in an inner query, I'm going to look to the outer query to see if the outer query has the value I need that currently isn't in the subquery. It takes a lot. All right, so again, clear your mind. Just kind of absorb what's going on. Let's take a look at an example. So here in this example, what's going to happen is, and what you see up here in the upper right, is the result of the order line T table. So that's the order line T table up in the upper right. In the middle, underneath, is going to be the result of the subquery. It's really the product T table. So what's going to happen is, and you can read right through this, the first order ID is selected from the order line T table, which happens to equal 1001. That gets passed into the subquery. So the subquery is evaluated using order ID 1001 to see if that order has a natural ash finish. Product 2 does, right? Because if you look at the product IDs associated with order ID 1001, there are 3 records there. One of the records is number 2. Product ID 2 is the coffee table, and sure enough, the coffee table is made out of natural ash. So the result set that's returned is not empty. Okay, so exists is evaluated to true because the inner query returns a record set. Okay, so the order ID 1001 gets put into the result set. Then what happens is it goes to the next order ID from the order line T table, which is 1002. Subquery is evaluated to see if the product ordered has natural ash finish. So again, if you look at 1002, you see that it is for product ID 3. Product ID 3 is the computer desk, which again has a natural ash finish. So once again, exists is going to be evaluated to true, and 1002 is going to be added to the result set. Then it just keeps going through. Any set that comes back empty is going to cause exists to evaluate to false, and that order ID will not be returned. Okay, so this is the end of the video lecture attempting to explain how a correlated subquery works. This will be much clearer once you watch the video on the example of how to use a correlated subquery.